All right, so this is going to be a comparison between the Universal Audio Ruby, UAFX, Ruby Top Boost Amplifier Pedal, and the Quad Cortex by Neural. What we're going to be doing is running this into the Quad Cortex with only the delay and reverb. So, probably barely hear that. Then I'll turn the Ruby off, and then I will engage an amp and a speaker. All right, so let's just hear a little bit of sound. Let's switch to the Ruby. So right now, I have the Ruby on silver, top boost all the way down. The top cut. I have bass in middle, right out here. And here we have the UC30 top boost model on cool, similar amount of gain. So let's just hear those sounds again. Now I have too much gain here. Let's try this again. Let's go back to the Quad Cortex. Now, right now I have the cab on an Alnico Cream. It's a 4x12, and this is their silver model, right? So they don't sound exactly the same, and none of them sound exactly the same. The best I could find was this blue, and I even took off the alternate mic, so we only have a dynamic 57. And we have a blue with a dynamic 57 here. It's a UK 15, so it's from the AC 15. So these are supposedly the same cabinet. Of course, they're not mic'd exactly the same. So let's see how this one sounds. And let's go back to here. Let's stay on the Ruby. Back to the Ruby. Now, one thing I can do to make them sound more similar is I can turn off the speaker here, which sounds bad on its own. And I can engage, now this is the Alnico Cream. which would be similar to this, which also has Alnico cream. Let's try that with a bridge pickup. Noticing there's a bit more bass here, and it's a bit less driven right now. Now, let's go back to the speakers so you can see the 6 speakers they have. So the speakers in the Ruby are always single mic'd by a SM57. So you don't get kind of a multi-mic'd cabs. You have just that one mic, and you have these 6 sounds, and that's it. So let's just hear those sounds. That's silver. Now I'll play back through them with just a few single lines. So they're nice. You can hear on this silver one, there's a bit more speaker breakup. like on the blue. So those are some of the sounds in here. Now, of course, with the Quad Cortex, you get lots of sounds. So. And so that's an Alnico Blue. Here I have, what is this? This is a C30 from 65. And of course, you have tons of cab options, and you can load in even more. Like here's a V30 4x12. And of course, you can also change the mic positions, the distance, the levels, and obviously you can EQ. You can change mics. Oops. Hello. So, obviously way more tonal flexibility here. Let's add this boost in here. So, let's bring this back on. Bring the boost in. And what I did to simulate that here is I just made a kind of little mid-boost para EQ thing. So here's without it, and here's with it. So here's without. Let's do it with some chords. Let's try that with a bridge pickup. And let's go back to this with the boost. So that's that blue speaker. Let's go back to, which is very bright, so we can turn that treble down. back to the other one. So again, tonal shaping is much easier on the Quad Cortex than on the Ruby. Let's go back to the Ruby and kind of get a sweep for it. So these were on silver, which is pretty bright. We have boost on. Put it back in the middle. Bass all the way up. Bass all the way down. It gets very MIDI. Bass in the middle. Boost all the way up. Now, we have top cut. Now obviously with the Quad Cortex you can add So we have lots of flexibility. Of course, here we can also do something such as go to a different amp. So this is the AC15. So here, I'm going to set the AC15 and an AC30 the same. Just take out that boost. So what we have now is let's see, AC30. So let's go 4.9, 7.9. No tone cut. Then we'll do the same with the AC15. So you can hear the AC15 is more mid-focused, it's a little more saturated. The bass and treble are not as pronounced. let's just hear what it does with the volume maxed out. Let's just roll down the volume on the guitar. You can't see this, but I'm going from 10, let's say, to 5. And back to 10. And let's go to the Quad Cortex. Let's go back to the Ruby. Back to the Quad Cortex. So that was all on volume 5. Back up to full. Back to the Ruby. This is a very bright channel. Let's just switch over to this channel. And back to here. Okay, and now I will talk through my impressions. So my thoughts in comparing the Quad Cortex and the Universal Audio Ruby are, well, let's start with the obvious and then get into the most important thing. So I think the obvious is the Quad Cortex costs around $1,800 and the Ruby costs around $400. So this is 4.5 times more expensive than this. This can do way more than 4.5 the amount of things that this can do. And I can talk about that in a minute, but let's talk about the sameness if we just tried to use them to do the same thing. So just as an amp modeler with a boost with 6 specific speaker cabs, right? This compared to this, if this only could do amp models, 6 speaker cabs, which it can obviously do a lot more, and only had these types of adjustments, right? And a boost. So does one feel better? Does one sound better? Would I say one is of higher quality? And the answer to that is no. I would say they're on par. I would say personally, I slightly prefer the Quad Cortex, but I don't think its AC30 capture is better or its speaker cabinets are better. I just prefer it probably because I can make it sound the way I want it to, right? Because the Ruby, you have 6 speaker cabs, right? And they're particular speakers and particular cabs with a particular mic in a particular spot, and you can't adjust it. So if I choose this the Alnico Blue, I can't move the mic or switch the mic or change that at all. It's that one mic in that one spot on that one speaker. So we really have only 6 tonal varieties, right? Which is fine, but you might even say, well, if I had an amp and a speaker cab, I could put a bunch of different mics on it. I could double mic it. I could have a ribbon and a condenser. I could do lots of things if I had the real amp and mics. Obviously, this is $400, so it's trying to snapshot you. And I think what it's trying to do, it does really well. But for me, the flexibility, it's like I kind of would prefer to have the green and the silver somewhere in the middle, but I can't go somewhere in the middle. Or I'd prefer the blue, but I'd prefer a slightly different placement or a different mic. And the EQ adjustments, since they're so amp authentic, can't really adjust outside of that, right? Whereas with the Quad Cortex, not only can I adjust things inside, not only can I go to a speaker cab and move the mic positioning around, change the levels, change the mics, change the cab to an basically infinite variety. I also have EQs I can run. Parametric. There are just so many ways to adjust the sound here. So for me, I can get the sound I hear in my head here, whereas I have to play with the sounds that are in this. So that doesn't mean the quality is better. As far as dynamics, as far as touch sensitivity, as far as sounding like something real, I think this does a great job. It doesn't to me sound better than the Quad Cortex. It just sounds as good. I'm going to mention the unfortunate things I think about the Ruby. So the unfortunate things are the lack of kind of further shaping, whether it was a little more EQ flexibility, more mic placement, the ability to adjust the cabs, adjust the mic, some way to have a little more EQ tonal flexibility. You know, and I know they want to be very authentic, but they're authentically putting 6 cabs here for variety. So why not give us another way to do that? Even if that was software based, even if there was just some EQ that you could add somewhere in the chain, that would be really helpful. Second, that would be really helpful would be the way for this to be controlled externally, some way to control it externally, right? We have one preset and one whatever's set here, which is like, okay, now I have a 2-channel amp. Cool, two-channel amp. And I think that's a great way to describe this pedal. Describe it as an amp in a box. Literally as limited as an amp in a box, except it can't actually produce loud sound, so you'd need like a power amp. But it's really an amp in a box, right? That's what it is. And it doesn't go beyond that. To have the USB-C port actually output sound as a way to directly record from it. That would be such a big, wonderful addition to this pedal. A headphone jack. Everyone's wanted just a headphone jack so that I can use this on its own. And then just maybe a basic effect. You know, they could just throw in some reverb. They have the room, but some actual reverb so that you kind of have something complete in and of itself. Some way to create a little more space in this pedal. Like with the Dream, the Dream has reverb because that's the amp it's emulating. So they're trying to stay honest to the amp, right? And I get it, but these few extra features could turn this from, pretty good and very good at exactly what they're trying to do to really making it like a full-fledged thing, even if you just wanted to focus on the Ruby, right? So again, that would just be a little bit of basic effect, a little bit more tonal shaping, the ability to save multiple presets and move through those, some way to externally control it, whether it's with a foot switch or MIDI, and the ability for the USB-C to actually send audio signal, right? Because you have to basically come into here, it converts analog to digital, then it outputs again to analog, so it's converting the digital back to analog. Then I'd have to go into some sort of analog to digital converter to get it into my computer to record it. So I'm going digital, analog, digital. Instead, we could just go in digital and it could go direct to computer. That would be fantastic. And again, just a headphone out would be such a great thing. So those are all my gripes with this pedal. Obviously I could say, well, they could put all 3 of their pedals or they could have more pedals in here. I'm not really saying that. I'm just saying if someone wants in kind of the Vox AC 30-ish world, those additions would have made such a big difference to me. Okay, so again, if we're just saying with what this can do, and we were limiting this to only doing what this can do, I'd say they're on par with each other. This has some great nuance in it. It has a really nice feel. I wouldn't say it holds up exactly with an actual amp. It's still a little bit, There's a difference. I don't know how to say it. It does well with edge of breakup. It does well with volume knob. So does the Quad Cortex. And then, of course, the Quad Cortex, you're just getting so much more, right? Tons of different amps, tons of different speaker cabinets, tons of different effects. The ability to capture any amp, capture someone else's amp, have that sent to you at a setting, right? You can't really adjust the amp. Like this is, you can fully adjust the amp and the controls respond much like the amp. And so would an amp block here do the same thing. With the captures, they're more like where they are is what they are. But if you capture something the way you like it, you have that, right? Of course, this has headphones. This has XLR outs. This has the ability to function as a recording device direct to computer. You can just have nothing in the chain. It takes the analog signal, converts it to digital. Really great at that. It has a looper, it has a tuner, it has really endless ways to sculpt tone. Delays, reverbs, envelope followers, all of that. So this can obviously do so much more than this can. But just comparing them, I'd say, I would say what I said, which is I would prefer this one just because, for instance, I can put an EQ there. Because I can change where the mics are. Because I can have more variety. I was kind of like not able to find the sound I wanted in these 6 options, even with tweaking these 3 EQ based knobs. But sounds really good. So I hope that's helpful.